A new female recruit, Ayla Ward, arrives at Fort Ridgeline, a base known for producing the toughest frontline units. The male platoon's 16 seasoned soldiers don't like the idea of a woman joining their drills. Rumors spread fast. She only got here because of a recommendation. They whisper, mock, and throw subtle insults during warm-ups. During a break, the squad leader, Sergeant Colt, smirks and announces a fun test. Ayla must complete the same brutal obstacle course as all 16 soldiers, while they run it together and attempt to block her at every turn. Everyone laughs. They think it will break her. Ayla stays silent, but her eyes carry a fire no one notices yet. As the whistle blows, they expect her to fail. What they don't know is that she has been trained by someone far above their level, and she's been hiding her real reputation for a reason. The soldiers start the run with confidence. But the first shock hits quick. Ayla moves like a blur. She flies over the low walls, rolls under the wire, and reaches the rope climb before any of them. Some soldiers stumble trying to block her. Others mutter, "How the hell?" The laughter is gone. The yard's atmosphere turns tense as they realize this isn't the weak recruit they expected. Colt orders them to push harder and not let her embarrass the platoon. They charge after her, ready to swarm her at the next obstacle. But Ayla isn't intimidated. She's calculating, focused, and already planning her next move. At the hanging hoop section, the soldiers try to corner her. Instead, Ayla uses their own bodies as leverage, springing off a shoulder, swinging higher than expected, and landing ahead of them with perfect control. One soldier slips trying to catch her and crashes into mud. Another pulls a muscle trying to keep up. A third gets knocked back by a swinging beam. He misjudged because he was too focused on her. The group's frustration boils over. Colt feels humiliated and demands they stop going easy on her. But Ayla is no longer playing defense. She's showcasing skill, discipline, and raw endurance that exposes their weakness. For the first time, the soldiers feel what they've never felt in this yard. They're being outclassed. Halfway through the course, Colt tries to block Ayla with a risky maneuver, causing them both to tumble. But Ayla recovers instantly and helps him up, shocking him even more. When she touches his arm, he feels a hardened scar across her wrist. Only elite operations units get scars like that. Scars from missions regular soldiers don't even hear about. Confused, Colt asks quietly, "Who trained you?" Ayla simply replies, "Someone who believed in standards, not excuses." They reach the final sprint. The 16 soldiers chase her with everything they've got left. But regret hits hard. They started something they were never ready for. Ayla crosses the finish line first. Not winded, not shaking, calm, the base commander steps into the yard. Every soldier snaps to attention. He walks straight to Ayla, salutes her, and says, "Welcome back, Chief Instructor Ward." Silence crushes the platoon. The 16 soldiers realized they hadn't challenged a recruit. They had challenged the new Special Forces training coordinator, a legend brought in to overhaul the entire combat program. Their faces turn pale as the commander adds, "She be shaping all your futures. And today, gentlemen, you learned why." Ayla looks at the exhausted men and finally speaks, "Tomorrow we train again. This time you follow my lead." The 16 soldiers who mocked her, doubted her, and tried to block her stand frozen in shock and humility. Their regret didn't just come fast. It became their first lesson. The sun hung low over Fort Ridgeline, casting long shadows across the training yard where reputations were built and pride was crushed. This was not a place for the soft-hearted. It was a base known for producing frontline soldiers who could endure blistering heat, bone-freezing nights, and the kind of discipline that stripped a person down to their core. Into this harsh world walked Ayla Ward, the newest name on the roster, dressed in a fresh uniform but carrying an aura that didn't match a rookie. Her steps were calm, almost too calm for someone entering a place famous for breaking egos. the 16 soldiers already stationed. They watched her with folded arms and hidden smirks. They were seasoned men, roughened by drills and confident in their unchallenged dominance. A woman joining their platoon wasn't something they expected, let alone welcomed. By the time she dropped her duffel bag on the ground, whispers had already started swirling claims that someone high-ranking must have recommended her, that she wouldn't last one full cycle, that she'd slow them down. Not one of them considered the possibility that she might outperform them. During warm-ups, the tension in the air thickened. Ayla kept to herself, stretching silently while the others exchanged looks, nudges, and muffled laughs. To them, she was a joke waiting to happen. Their squad leader, Sergeant Colt, noticed the restless energy and decided to entertain it. With a grin that wasn't friendly, he clapped his hands, calling everyone to gather around. "Well, Ward," he said, locking eyes with her, "since you're new, how about a little test? You run the full obstacle course with all of us. No breaks. No exceptions." The men behind him chuckled, already imagining her defeat. Colt added, "And don't worry. We'll even give you the honor of trying to keep up." Ayla didn't flinch. She simply nodded, her face unreadable. Inside, she wasn't offended. She expected this. She had seen this attitude her whole career. People always underestimated her before they learned the truth. As they lined up at the starting point, the 16 soldiers bent forward like predators ready to pounce. They planned to block her, outrun her, and prove she didn't belong. But Ayla's eyes were sharp and steady. The whistle blew, and in that instant, the game they thought they controlled began to slip from their hands, because Ayla Ward wasn't here to survive the test. She was here to redefine their understanding of strength. The moment the whistle sliced through the hot air, the 16 soldiers surged forward with the confidence of men who had dominated this course 100 times. Dust exploded beneath their boots, muscles tightened, and the yard filled with the thunder of heavy footsteps. They sprinted with the relaxed arrogance of people who believed the race was already won before it even began. But Ayla Ward didn't move like them while they launched forward with power. She exploded forward with precision. Her stride was sharp, controlled, and impossibly fast. Within the first 5 seconds, she wasn't beside them, she was ahead of them. The soldiers blinked, confused, thinking it must be a fluke, a lucky start. Yet her pace didn't waver. Her breath stayed steady, legs cutting through the air like she had trained on terrain far harsher than this dusty yard. When she reached the low wall, the first obstacle, most of the men were still 5 steps behind. Ayla vaulted over it in a smooth arc, landing quietly like she weighed nothing. The soldiers, accustomed to smashing their way through obstacles with brute force, crashed down noisily behind her. Confusion spread across their faces. Colt narrowed his eyes, the first spark of irritation flickering in his chest. As Ayla slid under the barbed wire crawl, her movements were fluid, efficient, almost graceful. She didn't rush blindly. She read the terrain, anticipated snags, adjusted her body with the precision of someone who had run courses far deadlier than this one. When she popped out the other end, she already had a 10-foot lead. 2 soldiers tried to speed up, attempting to block her at the rope climb ahead. But when they arrived, she was already halfway up, climbing with the confidence of someone scaling cliffs, not ropes. Her grip was strong, her rhythm perfect, and by the time the men grabbed the rope, she was already over the top. "Is she serious right now?" One of them gasped. "No way, she's just a new recruit." Another muttered, chest heaving. Their laughter vanished. Their smirks dissolved. An uncomfortable silence settled in their minds. Sergeant Colt felt something unfamiliar pressure. He barked at the men behind him to pick up the pace, refusing to let a newcomer embarrass his entire squad. But Ayla wasn't looking back. She wasn't proving anything to them. She was simply running the way she had always run, silent, focused, and trained by someone who demanded excellence. The soldiers had expected an easy show. Instead, They were struggling to keep up with a ghost they couldn't catch. The course tightened as Ayla reached the hanging hoop section, a place where most recruits slowed down and seasoned soldiers relied on raw strength. The 16 men finally saw a chance to trap her. They rushed in from both sides, forming a semicircle around the structure. Convinced that her speed would mean nothing once she was in the air, Ayla didn't hesitate. She leapt upward and grabbed the first hoop with perfect timing, her body swinging forward with controlled momentum. The soldiers lunged to intercept her path, reaching for the hoops near her hands, expecting her to freeze or lose balance. Instead, she read their positions in a split second. Rather than swinging in a straight, predictable arc, she angled her body sideways and used one soldier's shoulder as a quick leverage point. With a light push, barely a touch, she lifted herself higher and caught the next hoop above their reach. The move stunned them. It wasn't brute strength. It was strategy, awareness, and a level of agility they weren't prepared for. One soldier attempted to grab the hoop she was reaching for. But because he wasn't watching his footing, his boots slipped on the mud beneath him. He dropped hard, splashing dirt across another soldier's uniform. Another tried to rush forward too quickly and misjudged the swing of a heavy beam that was part of the obstacle. The beam slammed him in the chest and knocked him backward. A third pulled a muscle after trying to imitate her movements, letting out a shout of pain that echoed across the yard. Ayla reached the platform ahead of them and dropped down lightly, barely breathing hard. She didn't look back to check who fell or who cursed. She simply kept moving forward, focused, silent, unstoppable. Behind her, Colt's frustration erupted. His pride had taken a blow, and his voice cracked with anger as he ordered the squad to stop fooling around and catch up before this becomes a joke. But deep inside, Colt felt something else: fear. He had never seen anyone move like that on this course, not even among his best men. The soldiers regrouped, sweat dripping, breaths heavy, muscles burning far earlier than usual. They were 16 against 1. They were supposed to dominate, but as they watched Ayla pull further ahead, one truth settled heavily in their minds. They weren't chasing a recruit. They were chasing someone far beyond their level, and for the first time, they knew it. The midpoint of the course was a brutal stretch of uneven ground, scattered with old tires, swinging logs, and narrow beams that demanded balance and precision. It was the place where most trainees slowed down, where mistakes happened, and where exhaustion usually started to show. But Ayla moved through it with a steady rhythm, her footsteps quiet, her breathing controlled, her focus unbroken. Behind her, the 16 soldiers were unraveling. Pride had turned into pressure. Pressure had turned into desperation. Sergeant Colt, red-faced and determined not to be humiliated by a lone newcomer, pushed harder than the rest. Sweat ran down his temples as he closed the gap slightly, fueled by embarrassment more than stamina. When they reached a narrow beam suspended over a shallow mud pit, Colt made his move. Hoping to regain control, he rushed onto the beam and attempted to cut her off. But Ayla anticipated him instantly. She shifted her weight at the last second, causing Colt to misjudge his footing. The beam wobbled violently. For a split second, both of them slipped. Colt fell to one knee, but Ayla hit the ground and rolled with precise skill, recovering far faster than should have been possible. Before running on, she turned back and extended her hand to him. It was a simple gesture, but one that hit Colt far harder than any insult could have. When he grabbed her wrist, he felt it, a hardened scar running across her skin, deep and unmistakable. Not a training injury, not a rookie mark. A combat scar. Only soldiers from elite, classified units carried scars like that. Soldiers with histories men like Colt only heard about in rumors. For the first time, doubt crept into his voice. "Who trained you?" he asked quietly, breath shaking. Ayla didn't pause. She simply met his eyes with a calm, almost patient expression and replied, "Someone who believed in standards, not excuses." Her voice wasn't arrogant. It wasn't defensive. It was the voice of someone who had endured far worse challenges than 16. Doubters in a dusty yard. As they continued toward the final stretch, the truth whispered through the platoon. Something was completely wrong with their assumptions. Their muscles burned, their lungs struggled, and their confidence cracked. Ayla, however, remained steady. The 16 soldiers had started this challenge to expose her weakness. But now, step by step, obstacle after obstacle, they were the ones being exposed. And their regret was no longer just coming fast. It was becoming unavoidable. The final stretch of the course led straight toward the old parade ground. A long expanse of cracked concrete that shimmered under the afternoon sun. This stretch was designed to drain every last drop of strength from a soldier's body. For most runners, it felt endless. For the 16 soldiers behind Ayla, it felt like judgment. Ayla ran without stumbling, without slowing, her shadow gliding cleanly across the concrete. She wasn't rushing, but she wasn't tired either. She looked like someone who had done this 1,000 times, someone who lived in places harsher than this base. Someone who learned discipline the hard way. Not from textbooks or standard drills. By the time she stepped across the finish line, she didn't even look winded. She simply placed her hands on her hips and waited, calm and still, as if she belonged there more than the others did. A moment later, Colt staggered across the line, gasping for air, followed by the rest of the platoon's 16 men who had started the day with pride, and now looked like their souls had been shaken loose. None of them spoke. None dared to. Then a sudden hush swept across the yard. Footsteps approached, clean, heavy, unhurried. The base commander, Colonel Rexton, emerged from the corridor with 2 senior officers behind him. His eyes didn't scan the platoon. They went straight to Ayla, and for the first time since she arrived, the soldiers saw a flicker of recognition on her face. The colonel stopped directly in front of her. And then, before anyone could process what was happening, he raised his hand and offered her the sharpest, most respectful salute a superior officer could give. "Welcome back, Chief Instructor Ayla Ward," he said. Every soldier felt their stomach drop. Chief Instructor? Not a recruit. Not a transfer. Not a rookie. She was the newly appointed Director of Advanced Combat Training, the person responsible for rewriting their entire training doctrine. The one the colonel had reportedly selected after months of classified evaluations. The colonel turned to the platoon, his voice firm. "Today, gentlemen, you challenge the woman who has trained units we are not even cleared to discuss. You were not meant to win. You were meant to understand the level you must rise to." Ayla's gaze swept across the exhausted men, not with smugness, but with a sharp, commanding softness. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "you begin training under me. Leave your pride behind. Bring your discipline instead." 16 soldiers stood frozen, humiliated, humbled, but for the first time, finally ready to learn.